This is Chris Pope with Deep Root Spiritual Ministries. So glad you can join me today. We're still in Ecclesiastes, lesson number 4, chapter 4, verses 1 through 16. Be satisfied. You know, it's amazing how powerful a piece of rope is, a cord. You know, it's interesting when you see a rope and you see sometimes and the way the rope is made and they're broken strands of rope, yet the rope is very, very strong because it's woven together. And that's what gives it strength. That's what gives it tension strength. When it's pulled, it actually tightens the bands together. It actually shrinks. We don't realize it, but it shrinks down and it makes it stronger. That's really amazing in it, how God gives man wisdom to make a rope. Because God is the creator of all things. He's wonderful, beautiful, and amazing. And so we're still in Ecclesiastes chapter 4. We're going to do verses 1 through 3, and it says this: look again at the acts of the oppression which have been done under the sun. And behold, I saw the tears of the oppressed, and that no one had comfort for them. And their power was on the side of their oppressors, and they had no one to comfort them. So I congratulated death, in whom already were dead, more than the living who lived. But better off is both of them, for the one who never existed, and who has never seen evil activity done under the sun. Again, Solomon's giving us despairing things. People get oppressed. The oppressors get victory over them. And it's like, why do they get victory? They're the bad guys. They needed to be destroyed. You know, I know as a kid, of course, I love cartoon stuff. I was a cartoon kid, and I love the bad guys always to lose in the end. I mean, I was a Batman kid. I would watch Batman cartoon things, and I know they're real characters, but always in the end, he'd survive. Or Superman would always figure it out, or Spider-Man, or I was a big Captain America fan. And I loved Captain America, and at the end of the movie or the end of the comic, he would win. And that's not real life. Why does evil exist? Why do evil people win? And that's what Solomon is looking at. Why do the evil win in the end? It doesn't make sense. God is God. He does love us, but he allows mankind to do evil acts to one another, to take, to hurt, to harm. And, you know, Solomon is saying, is it better off not to even be born? Because life can be disheartening, can it? I mean, you can have plans and they fail. You can do things and they fall apart. And, you know, we're our own worst enemy. We're the one that's caused problems because we're not satisfied, content in where we are. Verses 4 through 6 say this: and I have seen every labor and every skill which is done, resulting in the rivalry between persons and neighbors. And this is futility, striving after wind. For the fool folds his hands and consumes his own flesh. And one with a handful of rest is better than 2 fists at labor, striving after wind. To understand that here we are, you know, we lack satisfaction. We think everyone owes us. I'm in competition with my neighbor, the one that I work with or whatever. And there's competitions that are created between people and between individuals. Well, if you were just like this person or siblings or whatever, and you see these competitions go on, and it's divisive. It destroys, it takes, it hurts things. And yet God says basically in the scriptures is don't be idle. Don't let your hand consume all that you have and waste it, you know, use it up. Have 2 fists that you're working hard at, that you're doing what you need to do. Get to work. It's amazing to me when I see people that say to me, I need this, I need that. Okay, you have to work for it. I know my oldest daughter wanted a nice pair of blue jeans. And I was like, I mean, I don't really want to buy you this really expensive pair of blue jeans. And my wife at the time talked about it, and we had her work for the whole summer for the pair of blue jeans because she wanted them to take them back to school. And I'll never forget when she got done within the summer, she had all the cash in hand, had the taxes calculated. She had it all. She got to the pair of blue jeans and she picked up the pair of blue jeans and she was like, not worth it. And I'll never forget that moment. I'll never forget when you work really hard, when you think of all the sacrifices you made, is it the same level that you want it to be because you've worked hard for it and you know the sacrifice and you know what it's cost you and you're there, be satisfied. Verse 7 and 8 says this, and then I looked again at the futility under the sun, and there was a man without dependent, having neither son nor brother, yet there was no end to his labor, for indeed his eyes were not satisfied with riches. And he never asked, and for whom do I labor and disprove myself with pleasure? For this too is futility, in striving after tasks, to understand that if there's no one to leave it to, if there's no one to give it to, why are you working so hard? Why are you killing yourself? I know how to work, and I know, in my life, people have told me I kind of have the Midas touch in business, and I can make money with money, and I can do things because of God's blessings in my life. And I tell people, what is it all worth? I would rather spend more time with God and intimate with Him than I would pursuing money. I know how to make money and I know how to achieve goals. It's hard work, it's sacrifices, blood, sweat, and tears. And it doesn't mean in the end of it that you'll have success. I've had business failures in my life. My dad's had business failures in his life. But in your failures, you learn how to succeed then. And to lose teaches you to overcome. I'll never forget having a baseball team. It was a great team. We almost had an undefeated season. And we got to one of our last games of the season, we got beat. But I told them that at the end of the game, because we were the two undefeated teams, and it wasn't a championship, we were just playing each other, and we lost the game, but we were in the game to the very last out. And I told them, you've learned how to lose, but you won in the losing. You have achieved more than you thought you could because you've achieved something in the winning, though you lost. It teaches you how to win. It's easy to look at things and to get lost in things, but it matters what God says, what God does. It says in verses 9 through 12, it says this, and two are better than one because they have a good return on their labor. For either one falls and the other one, his companion. But woe to the one who falls and there's no one to lift him up. Furthermore, if two lie down together, they can keep warm. But how can they be warm alone? If one can overpower him who is alone, how can you resist the cord that has three strands that is apart? And to me, Solomon is comparing marriage. The beauty of marriage is it's two people, they're best friends, they're working together, they have common goals, they fight through life, and they have each other's back in the end of it all. And there's strength in when one falls, one is stronger. And I tell people, and it's just like that in my marriage thing that I do, I have an umbrella, and I say on the umbrella that the woman's hands, the man's hands clasp the umbrella. And when the man gets weak, the woman tightens her grip. And when the woman gets weak, the man tightens his grip. So they all both have a tight grip on the umbrella. The strength is the two of them. But see, it gets down to the end and it talks about a cord with 3 strands. And it's beautiful to know that what God is talking about and why God gives us this beautiful nugget in the middle of the scriptures to say, when I'm involved, when God is involved in your cord, and when your wife is involved, spouses are involved with each other, it's the 3 cords come together. And it's amazing just the physical laws of when you pull on any cord that has 3 strands, how strong it is. When all these strands come together and the strength of all of them together and woven together gives such more great power and tension strength to it, where if you just had the single cord, it may break. And 2 cords are strong, but 3 cords are wow. Immediately it changes and God created the laws of physics. He spoke them all into existence, and he knew the law of physics. If God is in your marriage and center of your marriage, if you're following the Lord, both of you, and drawing the ox together as both of you are have the plow yoked together and you're going the same direction, whether you're a horse or whatever, imperative, but it allows you to go in the same direction, and you're so much stronger in what you. Interesting that they never have the animals behind the cart to push it. They always put the animals in the front to pull it because they're greater strength in pulling than pushing. Isn't that a nugget too? When 2 pull together in the same direction, they're stronger. Because if they're just pushing, they're pushing on their own. But when they're pulling together, it makes them so much stronger. 13 through 16 says this: a poor yet a wise youth is better than an old foolish king who no longer knows how to receive an instruction. For he has come to his position because of the king. And even though he was born poor, he is a king. I have seen all those living under the sun move on the side of the second of the youth who replaces him. And there is no end to all people, to all who are before them, even to the ones who come later are not happy with him. For this too is futility and striving after wind. Understand something. My dad, again, he had a doctorate in divinity. He taught me, Chris, never stop learning. The greatest danger we have is when we stop learning. That is the point of education, to teach us how to learn, to teach us how to teach ourselves, to teach us how to move forward, to teach us these things, to always thirst for the knowledge. But then in that, because everything else is futile, make sure that you're following God in all that you do in your position in your life, because everything else is passive. When you're gone, everybody's going to forget who you were. You might put your name on a lot of different things, but the people still going to forget who you are. I don't care if you have this big old crypt standing on top of the ground. If you've got things named after you, people forget you. They just do. But God is eternal and forever. Follow him, and he will show you the way to go, and he will make your paths fruitful, and he will do things through you that are absolutely amazing. Just follow God. I'm glad God leads me. And what a privilege it is to just follow him. And I pray that in your life you follow God wherever he leads you. Sometimes it's not always easy following the Lord. Sometimes the ground's real easy to take. But, in his will, sometimes I found it to be true that when he's right in front of me and when I'm following right behind him, it is easier ground, really. Because the only thing that stops me from following God's will is my own flesh. God is so good and he loves you so much. Follow God. This is Chris Pope. God bless.